There's a slightly frightening feature about WordPress that we haven't quite spoken about, but I think you're well seasoned enough to dive right into the deep end, and it has to do with URLs and permalinks. The URL to your front page we've already examined. That's just domain.com or whatever your domain is, whatever your extension is. But you can send visitors to different parts of your website, for example, a single post. And the easiest way to do that is to click on the title of a post, or a page, or a category, or a tag. And if you now examine your URL, it looks a little bit different. So in my case, it reads domain.com / p equals 45. But my post title is super long post. And that hasn't really got any resemblance. So that's a little bit weird. And if I wanted to give someone a URL, I would perhaps like to have these so-called pretty permalinks that would perhaps be domain.com / super -long -post. And WordPress can do that with something called rewrite rules. These are frightening to a certain extent, and they're not that frightening really. I mean, they just tell the web server, be that Apache or Nginx, to display the URL slightly differently than p equals some number. This really is a parameter to WordPress. It means the web server is reached at this domain, and the parameter p equals 45 is given to WordPress. WordPress knows what to do with it. It has a look in the post database and says, hey, I think someone wants to see the content of post number 45. And that is what's being returned. But this URL isn't being rewritten by the web server. To WordPress it makes perfect sense. To the web server it makes perfect sense. It's just us humans. We like to have something, more palatable, more interesting, more memorable maybe. And WordPress offers a great way to do that. Now let me copy this URL so that we remember it, p equals 45. And if you head over back to where you're editing your posts, you've already been exposed to how you can potentially change this. WordPress says change permalinks here. You can do that from here, click this button, or you can head over to settings, permalinks. Either way will get you to this window, the permalink settings. The default is really nothing. And the good thing is this way of displaying links will work no matter which of these things is active. So if I had given someone my p equals 123 URL and I change my permalinks so that they resemble something, more palatable, like perhaps the post name here, then this will still work and will just be rewritten to that. But the other way around doesn't work, so it's kind of a one-way street. As soon as you change your permalinks to one of these structures or a custom structure, you can't go back. WordPress will still display your posts, but old links linking to your website will no longer work, except this default option. Let me show you what that means. It's all theoretical babble really, isn't it? Let me pick post name. This is one I recommend because it doesn't contain the date or any other funky stuff here. It just contains your domain and your post title. Hit Save Changes, and if you're lucky, you get a message like this, permalink structure updated, and that is WordPress having applied these scary rewrite rules for your particular web server. It's a file that needs to be written, and WordPress will take care of this under the hood if it's allowed. Certain hosts don't allow that, and you may instead get a message that says, hey, if your .htaccess file was writable, we could have taken care of this for you, but sadly it isn't, so instead you'll be given an instruction of how to create that file yourself. Well, let's hope you're with one of the good hosts that let you write to the htaccess file. Head back to that single post and refresh the page. Now remember, this is the single post URL, and let's see. Now it reads domain.com / super -long -post. And that is more or less my post title, which has been replaced with lowercase letters, and any spaces have been replaced with a dash. The funky thing is, WordPress will have done this for any post on the website. So if we look at perhaps the post with video here, and examine the URL closely, it now says post with video. This is good. This makes much more sense if I give this URL to someone than the previous one, which was, if we remember, p equals 45. Let me try what happens if I were to link to that. Perhaps I've given this URL out and have changed my permalink structure afterwards. What is WordPress going to do? Well, same thing as before. The old default structure still works. The URL is simply rewritten, but the post can still be looked at. Now the other way around, if I were to copy this URL from the post name thing, and I would perhaps go to month and name, save the changes. Now what we'll see is that if I refresh the page and do nothing else, permalink structure looks a little bit different, 2015-05 super long post. So what happens if I were to try the previously tweaked pretty permalink? Well, we got a big 404 error. That is not so good. So if you decide to change the permalink structure, do it once and leave it there. Do not change it retrospectively. Very important. So let's leave it on post name, save it, and that's that. Now speaking of permalinks, if I go back to my posts here and I go and edit the post, you can see that now that I've changed my permalink structure, I now have an influence over what this post is called. So while by default WordPress is going to take your post title, replace uppercase letters with lowercase letters, and replace spaces and special characters with dashes, you can also hit the edit button and make your own permalink. Perhaps your title is very long and therefore the URL will be very long. You can shorten this within reason, and WordPress will let you do that if this URL is available. Hit update, and you'll see that WordPress has rewritten that URL as per your specifications. If after you've applied this permalink rule and you're more comfortable giving out these nondescript links, you can indeed click the Get Short Link icon here. This will still give you the old notation which will work no matter what permalink structure you have applied. P equals 45 is exactly what we had before. Notice that if you have certain plugins installed that shorten URLs, then this may be replaced with something like bit.ly and some cryptic number, or wp.me, some cryptic number. So yeah, but if you don't have any of these plugins, Get Short Link will simply get you the post number in the old default permalink structure. Play around with it and see what you like best. I would suggest to stick with the post name, simply because it generates the most beautiful and prettiest URLs you can imagine.